Welcome back to the channel, guys. So today we're breaking down the real cost of starting an owner-operator trucking business, okay? We just decided to do this because we've worked with quite a few carriers, and we'll begin the process, getting their numbers, getting them all set up, and there are two major setbacks that I found typically prevent truckers from getting on the road, to be honest, just kind of derailing the dream of starting that business. And so I just said, this might be a good video to get out there for those interested in getting in the industry, or for those who's in the industry, just to kind of in the comments share, am I right or am I wrong, and then share your experience. So we're going to jump in. The first major cost, to be honest, in starting the transportation business is the vehicle itself, but you got options, right? And so the three major options that we kind of discuss with our new carriers is, the first is buying used. And so, that's not super cheap, because you are looking at about $30,000 to $80,000, just depending on the model, the equipment that you get or that comes with it. And so, just kind of think for used, that is the range. Of course, you can find vehicles less than that. But depending which route you go, there are multiple avenues, but where we're talking about an average, we are looking at about $30,000 to $80,000. And yes, it's kind of cheap. It is considered quote unquote cheap. Just think about the repairs that come with trucks. You know what I mean? With equipment, it is not. Those repairs are very expensive, and I've seen it break some banks. The next option is buying new, and so again, depending on the model, the make, the model that you get, the equipment that comes with it, you are looking to spend at a minimum, I would say $100,000 to $200,000. And yes, that is very expensive. And again, it depends what commodity you're trying to haul, again, the commodity, the type of equipment that you're gonna be utilizing to transport your cargo. But again, as far as the repairs, it's less headache because you're buying new, right? So just kind of think about that. And then the final option we're going to talk about or just touch on is leasing. And so again, depending on the model, the vehicle size, when I think about leasing, the most popular recently now is the box trucks, right? And the cargo vans. And so just kind of expect to go in with leasing, the down payment for leasing, and that's applicable to buy-in as well. But the typical lease, in this region, you can expect to spend, starting off, about $1,500 to $3,000. And just kind of remember, also when you lease, you got to factor in miles too, no different. And again, I kind of touched on already, not forgetting the down payment. Just kind of think about 10 to 20% is the typical ask, and then the same for lease, the down payment. And also don't forget, with some leases, you may have a balloon payment at the end. So that's something to really think about as well when you make your decision. But just kind of know the biggest investment is the vehicle itself. And so moving on to second, I said the top two, right, where I start to work with guys. And it's mostly been guys, you know what I mean? But not to say women aren't in the industry. I know there's plenty of women in the industry. So I use guys interchangeably, and I hope I don't offend anybody. But the second is insurance. So insurance is a big one. You cannot hit the road without coverage. And trucking insurance, commercial insurance is on a whole different level. So with the rates right now, you could expect to drop around $10,000 to $17,000 a year on insurance alone. And we all know insurance has multiple factors. We have to take it to your driving record account. the type of freight you're hauling, the truck's age, the truck's condition. So there's a lot involved with insurance, broker fees, the region you're working in, where you get your policy from. All of that is applicable when you're looking at insurance. And so for me, my experience has been those two as far as hurdles with folks getting out on the road, and it really is a barrier. It really is a barrier, and it just it messes with me every time. So the third is permits and licensing, that paperwork hustle. And so again, I'm not sure if you guys are aware, but trucking comes with a lot of red tape. You know what I mean? A lot of red tape. And so a lot of compliance requirements. And so you got to think about getting your numbers, your USDOT number, your MC number. That's right now, what, $300 a pop per MC, and they're talking about changing the MC, framework and the process for the application. But I am pretty sure that the fees won't go lower. You know what I mean? Like whatever reduced in cost. So we just kind of want to think about that $300 you got to drop per MC number, per commodity that you're selecting. IRP, the International Registration Plan, depending, again, this is more applicable for those drivers who's going interstate, but typically it's around $1,500 a year. So, you want to think about that. The good thing is that, you'll be able to, this isn't, for the most part, I want to say an upfront cost. I could be wrong. But typically my guys, this isn't one of the initial costs to get on the road making money, is what I'll say. If the fuel tax license, that varies by state, but it's something for sure to keep in mind and to put on your checklist or your budget, your ledger, on something that needs to be paid. And then finally, we'll touch on that heavy vehicle use tax, and that's usually around $550 a year. So just kind of think about those costs. With the permits, some are upfront, but some are based on mileage that you use, the tonnage of the vehicle. So those are all applicable as well when you think about some of these costs. And so that's why initially a lot of them aren't upfront. And then one, like here in Ohio, we have a state license. That's where it's a state license for the most part. It's with the Public Utilities Commission, and it's not expensive. It's only $30 a year. But again, every state is different, and so I can't touch on all 50 states, but it is something to think about, those initial permit fees and just getting those licensings and taxes. So the next on the list is fuel. Gas, diesel, the lifeline of your rig. Gas is not free, and for truck guzzling diesel, it is a big expense. Right now, like here in Ohio, we're looking at about $3.99, and so we kind of have our drivers expect to kind of budget, or expect to spend about $50,000 to $70,000 in gas. And so gas is something that you'll learn as you get into the business, but because we're just having conversations about getting started, right? But gas is something that you'll account for, because that is another we're not going to get into it today, but it is a cost and something that you'll want to account for, because you will have to be responsible for those reportings at the end of the year. I made a note too to speak on fuel cards and fuel discount programs, just because fuel is a big one. So you look for those. It can help shave off some dollars, but again, fuel is a big one when starting a transportation or maintaining a transportation business. Number 5, maintenance and repairs, keeping that rig rolling. Even if you buy a brand new truck, stuff breaks, right? So be expected to budget around 10 to 15,000 a year for regular maintenance. And of course, this really wouldn't be applicable to like a smaller cargo van. I know there's a lot of cargo van businesses being started. And so the budget wouldn't, for maintenance and repairs, we wouldn't expect, but just kind of keep that figure in mind, and then keep an emergency fund for surprise breakdown, you guys. Especially when you're purchasing a big rig, and it's used. You know what I mean? Like, I was having a conversation with one of my he's not my driver, but he is a driver, and he's a long-term, he's been in the field a long time, he's been in the industry a really long time. And yeah, like these trucks, can really get up to high mileage. And so we were talking, and he's like, the guy's truck's about to hit 1 million. And I guess for me, it was just kind of unbelievable, 1 million miles on a vehicle. But just kind of think, those breakdowns, you know what I mean? Think about those repairs at 1 million miles, on that dashboard. Okay. So a little bit about MSW Enterprise Ltd is we've been around a while, but we're new over here on YouTube. We're late to the party. But from what we've learned and heard, YouTube is a great party to be invited to. And so we're trying to grow the page. We're trying to grow a community. Feel free to comment. Comments are welcome over here. I am not a driver, so I assist drivers. I work for drivers, but me myself, I'm not a driver. And so I rely on you guys to kind of tell me what's going on in the field. So comment, share feedback. I am a forever learner, and I love forever learners. So subscribe, comment. Let's grow our community, guys. Thank you. Bye. The next is business expenses that we'll touch on. And so, trucks don't drive themselves. How are you securing the loads? And so we just got to think about those load board subscriptions. That's about $50 to $150 a month. I know there's some free ones out there. I'm not really going to go into that. I do have, if you're new with load boards, I highly suggest you look into those. I do a little shame plug. I do have a digital ebook on our website that kind of talks about, that does go a deeper dive into load boards and using load boards to be efficient in your business. But there are some free ones. That's maybe another video I'll go into as far as the free versus the pay load boards, but just kind of know that is one of the expenses. Factoring fees. So I'm sure if you guys, I hope you're aware about factoring companies, where your business. So, owner, operator, and independent driver, you are your own business. And so when you're hauling brokers, they don't pay you right away. A lot of times, just like any business, in any business, you're netting 30 to 90 days to get paid. And so a lot of drivers use factoring companies. And so, that may be something else that we'll have a conversation about. But just kind of know if you're getting paid through a factoring company, there is a fee. There is a percentage. I've seen some as low as like 0.5%, and I've seen some as high as 5% a load that you have factored. So, and just factoring just allows you to get paid sooner, because not a lot of folks can go 30 to 90 days without getting paid. And I just kind of listed all of those expenses that are pretty much through the gate. And so that's something just to think about. Accounting and bookkeeping, I have this on here because accounting and bookkeeping is going to be essential to maintaining your business, to be honest. This isn't the business to get paid and spend it, business is business, and it's important to pay yourself, but it's also important to pay your business. And so you'll want to maintain receipts. You'll want to account for mileage. You'll want to account for gasoline. One, for tax purposes, but then tax purposes all around is what I'll say. Both personal filings and required filings because of the industry that you're in, and based on those permits, right? So you'll want to have a good accounting and bookkeeping system. You can find some cheap options, especially if you have someone to help you set up, and they know what they're doing. You can really find some good cheap options. If not, you can also find some very expensive ones, is what I'll say. But just kind of keep in mind, $50 to $2,000 a year is what I kind of have drivers expect. But yeah, you'll definitely need an accounting and bookkeeping system for sure. ELD, the dreaded ELD, electronic login device. And so we know about the ELD. This is kind of that safety measure that's in place to help drivers not exceed their driver hours, right? And so again, it varies on who you go with, but you'll expect to pay about $20 to $50 a month on that. It's not cheap. But it is required. I know some guys have gone to using paper, but just kind of no paper. You're really on a slippery slope with the paper. If you can justify why you're not using an electronic login device, paper's fine temporary. I would advise for compliance purposes, and compliance is my jam. Don't use paper for long. You know what I mean? Try to find an ELD that works for you, that's cost effective. But yes, you definitely want to factor that into your cost of business. And then the last one is what I'll say is tires. Tires. Oh my gosh. Big rigs got 18 wheels. You know what I mean? Let's do the math. And we're looking at $500 to $1,000 at minimum for a tire, per tire. And so, tires, because again, of the tonnage that these vehicles are hauling, it really does play a part on the lifespan of your tires. So you just kind of want to keep that in mind as well. But yeah, tires is another expense. It's not initial unless you get it used, and they're up front and tell you, hey, you're going to need new tires. But yeah, you typically, when you buy, I would advise, if I were getting a used vehicle, regardless if it's a car or a truck, we want to make sure we're looking at those tires, you know what I mean? And kind of factoring that into that initial purchase, right? And hopefully you can get at least a year before you're having to replace. But again, it's life, So the bottom line, you're looking at about $50,000 if you're leasing, and you're cutting costs. And there are multiple ways. The things that I've listed are not cut in stone. There are ways to cut costs, and especially if you link with someone who's been in the industry a long time, there's a lot of secrets of the trade that I'm definitely not going to say here on YouTube. But 50, you know what I mean? The biggest chunk again is the vehicle itself, the route you go, and that insurance. Those are the two major hangups that oftentimes holds my folks up from getting on the road. It's like a bummer. Like they've paid, we've worked together. They've paid me to do this work, to get them on the road, to do this research, to get them a good rate for insurance, and they don't move forward because of the cost associated. They'll pay the $300. You guys look, and when you pay that $300 for that MC number, you only have a limited time frame to get that insurance uploaded for you to become fully active. Yes, they'll, so, you want to make sure you know all the costs up front, because, I've known folks, to be honest, who's bought multiple MC numbers just because they had planned to do multiple things with their transportation company, right? And then they get to the insurance piece, and the insurance company's like, well, we need, $1,700 up front, and your monthly payment will be, say, $800. But shoot, you've already spent $600. And if you don't have a little nest egg to get started, shoot, that $1,700 is a lot of money, and the FMCSA only gives you a short amount of time to get those insurance paperwork uploaded in the system. So make sure that I'm trying to help you guys get the required costs up front, just to kind of prevent, just some of the challenges that I saw. Because trucking is a good, it's a good business to have. I know, depending on who you talk to, the rates are trash. We see it all the time on the news. These companies are getting out of the transportation business for one reason or another, but we're not gonna debunk the fact that transportation is a good business, viable business, if done the right way, right? Being an owner-operator means big risk, but also big rewards. So if you manage your money right, build good relationships, hustle smart, you can stack serious cash, just know the cost before you hit the highway. So thank you for listening, you guys. Comment below. Was I right on some things? Was I wrong on some things? This is just really based on my experience in helping folks get on the road, or just having conversation with folks who's having some issues where they've ready to get on the road, and it's kind of like, I'm stuck, what do I do? What's out here? So in the meantime, check out our website for valuable services. You can find us at mswenterpriseltd.com. We have a free new safety entrant digital ebook over there. Check it out. We also got some other ebooks for you guys to check out if you're interested. And we got more services. We offer a ton of services. And so, like us, comment, share, and I look forward to talking with you guys in the next one.